Morning, everybody. Gosh, that's a bit loud. Right, this is the meeting of South Cambridgeshire District Council Cabinet. We'll go through normal procedures where we take votes by affirmation, and I'll ask people if they vote in for, abstaining or voting against. Members of Cabinet are entitled to speak before non-Cabinet members, but I can't see the member from Scrutiny and Overview here, which is very helpful. Welcome, Councillor Bradnam. And then anyone who's joining remotely, I'll ask to speak after that. So, apologies for absence. Do we have any apologies for absence, Pippa, please?
Thank you, Leader. We have apologies from Councillor Toomey Hawkins.
Thank you very much indeed. And do we have any declarations of interest relating to the agenda today? No? Thank you. Minutes of previous meeting. Members are asked to approve the minutes of the meeting held on Tuesday the 24th of September. I move the approval of those minutes as a correct record. Is that seconded? Thank you. Do members agree to approve the minutes? Thank you. Anyone voting against? Anyone abstaining? Thank you. Cabinet therefore agrees the approval of the minutes as a correct record by affirmation. I don't have any announcements, so moving on to public questions. One question has been received from a member of the public. Mr. David Lean's question set out in the supplementary pack. Unfortunately, Mr. Lean can't attend this morning, so we will therefore reply to him by letter within 5 days. So, item 6 is an update from Scrutiny and Overview Committee, who I think actually had quite an interesting meeting. Councillor Bradnam, do you want to speak to this item, please? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Leader. Yes, we had a really useful Scrutiny and Overview meeting on the 17th of October, where we asked and invited along to answer our questions. Representatives from mainly Anglian Water to talk about foul sewage and that sort of thing. We had the Environment Agency talking about flood control infrastructure. We had representatives of the County Council, the lead local flood authority, and we had South Cambs District Council's Drainage Officer, Lee Hillam. So it was an extremely useful meeting and quite wide-ranging. We looked at Anglian Water's own data and had some very penetrating questions from the members there about spillages into water bodies and streams and rivers, and calling them to account on their record. And also we have subsequently received information on phosphate measurements which go into water. We also talked to them about a specific incident in Foxton of a sewage incident which they've undertaken to improve the way they respond. And much of it was related to communication and actually being in touch with people who have asked them questions and giving sensible answers about when they might come back with a reply, or indeed when they might take action. We also had some really useful input from the Environment Agency relating to flood control measures and how they could and could not get involved with certain issues. Altogether, it was an extremely useful meeting, and these recommendations to Cabinet have come out of that. What we also understood was some of the limitations that exist for the organisations, but these recommendations, which are 1 to 6, are the summary of what we would like Cabinet to take into account and take forward. Thank you very much, Leader.
So thank you very much indeed. Thank you to all those people who, those outside organisations who attended the Scrutiny Overview meeting. I'd like to see us do more of these with outside bodies because I think they're hugely valuable. But thank you also to the committee members for what has turned out to be a really useful piece of work. So obviously, the whole water is a complex field with many players involved, and we have high-level officer representation with Water Resources East and so on. So I've asked for the recommendations to be looked at by our own officers, who will create a sort of action plan, making sure that the right body, because it might not be the district council, the right body is picking up the right work stream. So that will come to informal cabinet in a few weeks' time, and we will then, we'll then report back to scrutiny and overview about it. So thank you very much indeed. Are there any questions from any member of cabinet to Councillor Bradnam? No? Okay, thank you very much indeed. And please pass our thanks back to your committee. Right, moving on to Greater Cambridge Plan Making Timetable, which I am going to recommend. And I think Councillor MacDonald is going to second. Yep, agreed. Thank you very much indeed. So this is quite a massive piece of work. The recommendations are set out on page 16. Obviously, other things are going on in Greater Cambridge because the new government has picked up on the last government's focus on Greater Cambridge. So everything is subject to us fully understanding what the government's plans are for Greater Cambridge. But, you know, we have to move on with our own timetable, our own plan, and then, you know, bearing in mind what comes from government, we will have to accommodate that within our own plan making. So I'm not going to talk at length on this because I think it's all pretty self-explanatory. Councillor MacDonald, do you want to say anything?
Thank you, Chair. Only to say that until spring 2025, we understand, because of Cambridge Delivery Group and other factors around the development consent order, that this is draft at the moment, but we are still required to produce this draft, and so I'd like to second it. Thank you.
Thank you. Caroline, do you want to say anything at this point, please?
Nothing specific, I don't think, other than to say, yes, we're very much aiming to move the work forwards for the local plan to put us in the best position to deliver on the plan. The change in the timetable, the government's deadline for submitting plans under the current system is the significant change that's happened since March, and that's why we felt able to bring this revised draft timetable to you to this meeting. Which would enable us to take forward the plan under the current plan-making system with the view to submitting by December 2026. That is still a tight timetable, and obviously there are still a number of uncertainties around the plan, not least water supply and transport strategy and so on. But as you say, the report tries to cover all those points, but happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. So there was a bit of an extension, wasn't there, to what we thought the original timeline was going to be?
Yes, the previous government said that under the current plan-making system, we had to submit by June 2025, and we knew we couldn't do that. So the update in March said that on that basis, we would intend to prepare a plan under the new plan-making system. However, the extension of the transitional date to December 26 means that there is a reasonable prospect, I think I might phrase it as, of hitting that deadline under the current system, and therefore that's what we are recommending that the council should do. Also, the introduction of the new system seems to have been delayed slightly from this year to next, so there's also uncertainty if we were to plan to change to that new system. Obviously, we need to remain flexible and agile and respond to whatever happens around us that may impact on plan delivery, but we would envisage the plan strategy would be the strategy we would take forward under whatever system, which is why we feel able to progress.
Thank you very much. Jonathan, do you want to add anything to that? No, okay. All right, any questions from anybody? No? Goodness me, such a concise report. Thank you both very, very much for everything you've done. So recommendations set out, that we agree the update, and that an updated formal timetable will be brought to us in spring 25 once we know everything else that's going on in this complex part of the country that we live in. So do members in agreement with the recommendation?
Agreed.
Anyone against? Anyone wishing to abstain? Thank you. So Cabinet therefore agrees the recommendations. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you both. Right, moving on, more planning stuff. Item 8 is the Cambridge Biomedical Campus Supplementary Planning Document, which is a very welcome piece of work. So again, in Councillor Hawkins' absence, I will recommend this, and seconding is Councillor Henry Batchelor. Thank you very much indeed. So again, the recommendations as set out, there's 3 of them: to agree the document, agree the preparation of materials and the running of the consultation be delegated to the Joint Director of Planning, and agree that subsequent material amendments prior to consultation be made by the lead member for planning. Hopefully Councillor Hawkins will be back with us then. Heather, are you the person who's the expert on this?
No, I think it's Terry.
Of course it
Terry
is. My
and
apologies.
Lizzie,
Of course it is. I should know that. My apologies. Would you like to? Yes. Tell us something else, Terry and Lizzie, please.
Thank you. Yes, we're just preparing at the moment for the consultation period that will be from the end of November until mid-January. To account for Christmas period, we'll be extending it to 8 weeks to maximise participation from our communities. We're really looking forward to engage with as many people as we can on this, as it's such an important SPD. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Terry, anything else to add to that? No, so we've got the consultation going out. Obviously, we'll try and engage as many people as we possibly can. Is it just going to be an online consultation, or are we going out to any of the parishes that might be affected?
So we're currently preparing to go out to do some community events. So in person, we'll do a webinar online and a lot of social media promotion as well, so people can engage through different forms of consultation.
Excellent, excellent, good. Righty-ho, and local members will obviously do the best to promote it. So questions, Councillor Mills.
Thank you. Excuse me. So I'm one of those local members, and I know that my residents, in their very Shelfordian way, for example, will be giving this a lot of scrutiny. I think one of the interesting facts that leapt off the page when I was reading this was the 37,000 people that currently work or occupy that site, and that's going to increase by tens of thousands if this or when this development goes ahead. The physical scope of the additional is almost the same as the existing site in terms of area, not necessarily one to be developed for commercial buildings, because there's some talk of a park in here and a country park type environment. But it's the scale of that then, in contrast to the city that it sits abutting, is quite remarkable in terms of its scale. And also, it's 9-storey high buildings, for example, and the famous incinerator chimney that aren't exactly dreamy spires as the city has. I think one of the things that strikes me as somebody that's been involved with the GCP so strongly is this issue over transport. And I asked a question recently from a CBC meeting, what sort of modelling had been done for the spur road, and it was being presented something as an answer to the transport requirements. Well, clearly, with those numbers that I've just been talking about, a simple spur road going in the direction of the park and ride is not going to be a substantive answer to that transport question. We've got work to go ahead now as approval from the county for the DCO, the Transport Works Act order application for CSET, but that doesn't mean that we have funds allocated for development of that project. It just means that it will go to the next stage. So it's of concern for me and my local residents that we are going out for this consultation, and hopefully at the end of that process we'll have more answers to these questions that are arising out of that. Thank you.
Terry, yes, would like to respond to that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Mills. So I think there's probably 2 points in there. I think, just to clarify, the scope of the supplementary planning document relates to the existing campus, because the work, some of the things that you were mentioning about potential greenbelt release and a spur road going to the campus down to the Baber and Park and Ride, that I suppose is within the remit of the emerging local plan, because it's the local plan that will make the decision on whether the campus expands further south, whether land can be released from the greenbelt. It will also pick up on the wider package of transport measures that will need to be, first of all, identified and then delivered in order to address a lot of those concerns that you were raising. You know, the issue around transport, connectivity, movement. You know, early engagement that we've done on this SPD, as well as work on the local plan. Local communities have really strong passions around this, and we're really aware of that because we know it's a fundamental issue in the area. You know, and we haven't held back in terms of officers engaging with the biomedical campus on raising those issues. But as I mentioned, these are all sorts of things that we will need to pick up as we're developing the emerging local plan, because it's that plan that will set the policy, or that it's that plan that will allocate the site, and it will make a decision on the greenbelt release. So I suppose what this SPD is trying to do is bridge the gap between the now and when we adopt the new local plan. What we anticipate through engagement with the biomedical campus is that you're not really going to see any significant scale developments coming forward on the campus in that sort of 3 to 5 year period. You know, with the Cancer Research Hospital and the Children's Hospital recently being approved, it's unlikely that we're going to see huge schemes coming forward in that timescale. But nevertheless, it's always a possibility, particularly with the commercial life science sector, which moves at a much faster rate than the NHS. So we do feel that it's really important that the SPD has a broad scope in terms of the types of applications that it needs to deal with, from the quite small and mundane all the way through to potentially large-scale developments. And it's about making sure the SPD is applied proportionately, depending on what those applications are. So what we've tried to do in the last section, section 5, which is about obligations and mitigation, is about trying to get the applicants to think beyond their red line boundaries when they're coming in with applications in the short term. Because essentially, I think most people would agree that it seems that it's been a very piecemeal approach to development at the campus for a very, very long time now. And actually, by trying to get applicants to think about, at the very earliest stages, about thinking beyond their red lines, thinking about things like transport, green infrastructure, all of those types of things, what can they do now to influence positive change that will then be a good stepping stone for future development as the campus, you know, moves forward over the next sort of 10, 15, 20 years' time. So we see this as a stepping stone, but nevertheless a really important stepping stone in helping to deal with planning applications between now and the adopted local plan.
Thank you. Yeah, very interesting. Yes, and also the internal movement. We spent some time trying to find our way out last time we were there, trying to find half an hour traipsing around trying to escape from the site, which wasn't easy. Any other questions? Anna Bradman.
Thank you, Chair. You'll appreciate that I sit for this council on the Joint Development Control Committee, which also has oversight of this site and at the biomedical campus. Last year I was the chair, and this year I'm the vice chair. And my involvement with Joint Development Control Committee has gone on for, I think, probably nearly 8 years. And for all of that time, we have been asking the biomedical campus to draw us up or bring to us a master plan, because we've been really concerned about, as Terry de Souza says, about the piecemeal way that planning has been coming forward, with apparently not any real planning for the way the site connects within itself, the way it connects with public transport routes, how people are going to get to these esteemed hospitals, and indeed their visitors and relatives are going to visit them. And so all of that has been something that we've been asking for a very long time. And I think, can I give credit to the officers at the Greater Cambridge Shared Planning Service for actually wrestling this together, because it's extremely important, and we can only hope that this next phase, as Terry says, this interim phase, is handled in a more logical way. And thank you very much for doing it. So we welcome it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I should say I welcome it.
Yeah, thank you. It is indeed a really, really welcome document. I mean, this site should be the jewel in our crown. And, you know, of course, it's been built in stages. There hasn't been a master plan. But I think this is the opportunity to, you know, to make it something really fabulous and something that's internationally significant and internationally competitive with other places around the whole of the world. So in the absence of any more questions, the recommendations are on page 41, 42. Do members approve the recommendations?
Agreed.
Anyone voting against? Anyone abstaining? Members therefore approve the recommendations. Terry and Lizzie, thank you both very much indeed. Huge amount of work and very, very well presented. Thank you. Now, moving on to the next issue, which is planning. Health Impact Assessment Supplementary Planning Document. And again, I will present this, and I think it's going seconded by Councillor John Batchelor. Thank you very much indeed. So this is something we do already, but it's complex and onerous. But it's really important to us to escalate the importance of health within all the planning we do, to make sure that we are supporting the building of places that foster good health amongst people and actively tackle ill health, because the implications of ill health on every element of our society are really serious indeed. And, you know, the news is full of alarming stories about the impact on the health service and on social care, but actually we can do an awful lot through planning to encourage places that are healthy places for people to live, in which they can lead happy and healthy lives. So, you know, even though this seems quite onerous, you know, it is actually a simplification of what has gone before, and hopefully it's going to be very robust and easier for all of those involved in planning, both in our end and the applicant's end, to make work. Now, who do I have talking about this? Oh, Nancy Online. Hello, Nancy Online. Hello. Would you just like to add a bit of meat to what I've just said, please?
Yeah, thank you. Yes, it's intended to provide further guidance to developers on the process of health impact assessment to create healthy places. And the supplementary planning document is clear that developers should contact the local planning authority at an early stage to discuss the requirements, and that the amount of work that they need to carry out should be proportionate to the size of the development. So there are various thresholds and different types of health impact assessment. I think that probably covers it without going into too much detail.
That's lovely, thank you. Yes, and it was very, very readable indeed. Any questions from anybody about this? Yes, Councillor Batchelor.
Can I comment as the seconder for this?
Please.
My understanding is this is a simplification effort. That's much to be welcomed, but I would point out that the checklist for the assessment still runs to 32 pages. So perhaps there is still some scope for further simplification in due course. But I'm happy to second these proposals. Thank you.
Thank you very much. As nobody said planning was easy. Actually, Nancy, do you want to comment on, you know, the size of the checklist and how we're going to make this proportionate to the size of a development? Because, you know, if somebody's building 3,500 houses, they can cope with that. But if they're only building 20, it's possibly a bit heavy-handed.
Well, the checklist was based on a checklist that's been well received in London, but we adapted that specifically for Greater Cambridge. So we've identified which policies in the adopted local plans it relates to, and a developer would have to look at those policies in any case. So this is a way of kind of drawing it all together. And the checklist is kind of intended to be sort of a simplification. So a developer could go through all of those and identify ones that are relevant and ones that aren't. And as we say, that there are sort of health officers and environmental health officers that will help developers through that process and help to identify which are the kind of areas they should focus on specifically. So I think in actual fact, it should help, although it does look long. Maybe not all of those aspects are relevant, so they can skip past some of the things that aren't and just focus on the main aspects.
Thank you. That's reassuring. Any follow-up from that? No? Okay, all good. Righty-ho. Thank you to Nancy and also to Vaughan, I think, who's one of the other authors of the paper. So the recommendations are set out on 175 and 176. Do members agree with the recommendations?
Agreed.
Anyone voting against? Anyone abstaining? So members therefore approve the recommendations. Thank you very much. And yes, Councillor Mills.
Can I just ask that we check, well, it says Appendix 1 and Appendix 2, but then there seems to be related to Appendix A and B and so on. We might just check that out. Thank you.
Have we got that? Yep. Okay, that's lovely. Thank you very much indeed. And moving on now, planning obligations, supplementary planning document. Righty-ho. So again, I will present this. Councillor John Williams is going to second it. So again, this is part of all. You know, we've had a massive programme of transformation work in planning, which has been really successful. I'm really impressed with you know, the speed and the quality of the work that we've been doing. Again, planning obligations can be a quagmire, but this is all about streamlining it, making it a better process for everybody, making it a system that's easy to understand, with a view to accelerating delivery. So, James, do you want to say anything on this, please?
Thank you, Councillor. Good morning, everyone. So the planning obligations SPD, currently the council does not have a planning obligations SPD. Instead, officers rely on a suite of internal and external policies and practices, some of which are quite dated now. So what we've done is consolidate the best practices of the council and its partners into one SPD, which aims to be clear on our expectations for planning obligations, to ensure that these are maximised based on current policies and practices, and to minimise the cost and time the councils incur in negotiating and agreeing Section 106 agreements. And on its approval, the SPD would be a material consideration in the determination of future planning applications.
Marvellous. That sounds great. Councillor Williams, do you want to say anything?
Yeah, thank you. I'm very pleased to second this. I think this will be a big improvement and will help, I think, developers understand what is expected of them in our agreement, Section 106, and hopefully paves the way for us to introduce SIL at some point in the future as well. Thanks.
So this goes out for public consultation. How's that going to work, please? James, thank you.
It's part of several SPDs which will be out for consultation during the same period of time from late November, and as Kimberly
They're all going out at the same time, exactly. Are they? Jolly good. That'll keep us all busy. Excellent. I think this is going to be really, really welcome. And as you said in your introduction, you know, the complexity of a whole suite of documents, which I imagine is quite tricky for even the most, you know, the most able planner to get their heads around. Puts everything into one place. So I think it's really good. Well done for this. Okay, if there's no more questions, the recommendations are on page 339 and 340. Do members agree with the recommendations?
Agree.
Anyone voting against? Anybody abstaining? Nope. So members therefore agree the recommendations by affirmation. I think I must say thank you to Jonathan Dixon as well as James Fisher, who are the report authors. Thank you. Thank you both very much. Again, very, very nicely set out. And next one. Being swift, aren't we, today? Famous last words. Right, council tax charges for long-term empty properties and second homes. So John Williams is going to present this, and I think Councillor John Batchelor is going to second it. So John Williams.
Thank you, Chair. Basically, what's proposed here is that we bring forward by 1 year the date at which we start a surcharge for empty properties, and then to also cover second homes as well as empty properties. We already have incentives for owner-occupiers to bring empty properties back into use. And I said this morning on my radio interview, you know, we have a waiting list of some 2,000. We have more homelessness, and we have number of empty homes is around 2,500. And the majority of those homes are empty for a good reason. You know, people have between lets or are doing work on them or subject to probate, but there are a significant minority that have been empty and continue to be empty, and we would like to bring them back into use. And we have shy homes which can help owners bring them back into use, and therefore this is just a bit more of an incentive for them to come and seek help from us by introducing the doubling of the council tax charge after 1 year as opposed to 2, which it is currently. We also have an issue that some empty homes have been turned into second properties by putting furniture. So unfortunately, we have to also include second homes in this as well to make sure we capture everybody. So I hope you will agree to recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Councillor Batchelor.
Thank you, Leader. Happy to second this, fully in favour of any measure that is going to bring more housing into use. There's various reasons, obviously, why properties are left empty, but this certainly addresses a number of them, and I'm happy to support that move. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. And sorry, let's get to the end of the paper here. Is Dawn, have you got anything to add to this? Or? No, nothing at all. Okay, jolly good. All right, self-explanatory. It implements in April 26, is that correct? Yeah, April 26 this will come into play. I think it puts us in line with a lot of other local authorities as well. And this is about getting more homes in use for people who want to live in South Cambridgeshire. So thank you very much indeed for all the hard work on this. Any questions? Councillor Milnes?
Yeah, just a couple of things. One, I'd be really interested to review this in, say, a couple of years' time to see what impact, if any, this has had. Hopefully it will have had an impact, because this is a very visible problem, and it's one of the things that I get beaten up as a local councillor. Why are there empty homes when we've got people either homeless or waiting in long queue? So I'd be very pleased to see what impact this has. Thank you.
I think that's a really good idea to bring it back and review its impact. So, yeah, jolly good. Thank you very much indeed. Yes, Councillor Bradnam?
I just wondered, what are we doing about homes that have been newly built that haven't been sold because perhaps they've been set at too high a price point, and so they are also empty? I'm thinking about two particular properties built by this land, but also one property that was sold by South Cambridge District Council as a difficult property to sell, and all of these three properties are not occupied because they've been set at rather a high price point.
It's a really interesting question. I don't know what happens with new builds, but I have somebody who does. Dawn, would you like to?
There is going to be an exemption for those which are actively marketed. So we'll be looking at a sort of a process to decide procedure about what is actively marketed. So if they are being, the price is not being lowered over a period of time, then we will be charging the premium on those properties where they're not actively marketed. There is some legislation, hopefully over the next year, when others have taken this on, we'll see some more clarification about those difficult to let properties, so perhaps retirement properties in some places. So I think going a year behind some of our other councils will mean that actually some of that guidance will come along prior to implementation.
And just thinking about anecdotally, part of Eddington is in South Cambs, and I know some of the properties there, when they were initially built, they were set at quite a high price point and didn't sell for a long time and remained empty. I think that's been overcome to a degree now, but certainly the properties in one of my villages have been waiting to be sold for a very long time. So I'm glad that and I'm interested, are you glued to Rightmove looking at properties and property prices?
I think we will be having a process, but not making it too onerous for staff to actually manage this.
Thank you
so
very much.
that's really interesting. So Dawn, when you say there'll be an exemption for houses being actively marketed, I presume that means not just new builds, that means existing houses.
Exactly.
And when you say an exemption, is that an exemption from the uplift?
Yes.
Or not an exemption from council tax altogether?
So an exemption from the uplift for
Exemption from the
period,
uplift. Okay, gosh, nothing simple, is it? There's always exceptions. Yes, Councillor Bradley.
The other time, of course, this hits is when perhaps an elderly person moves into a care home and their house is still in their possession, but or the family's possession or whatever. But then when the elderly person finally dies, the property then comes under probate. And of course that takes a very long time to sort out. So there's that.
I think there are exemptions for people before probate. Yeah. So they don't pay council tax until probate's agreed, do they? No, okay, that's fine. Yes, Councillor Batchelor.
Thank you, Leader. Just on the question of probate, I've got an example in my village where the next of kin couldn't be found. And so this building has been empty for 10 years because apparently that's the amount of time that needs to have elapsed for the next of kin, if you like, to actually get the rights to the property. So perhaps we should be encouraging government to actually change the laws of probate to get that going, somewhat quicker. I don't think I'm alone in having this sort of issue in our village. Thank you.
Thank you. Dawn, something you ought to add? Or do you think we've covered it?
Nothing more from me.
Okay, that's lovely. Thank you very much indeed. Okay, so if there are no more questions, I will propose. Yes, sorry, Henry. Who's doing this? Sorry, it's me, isn't it? No, it's not. It's John. Sorry, it's John. Right, John. John Williams is proposing it. Do members agree with recommendations?
Agree.
Anyone voting against? Anyone abstaining? Oh, thank you. Members therefore approve the recommendations, and thank you very much to Dawn. And moving on to agenda item 12, which is cost of living, continuation and extension of support. So really important stuff here for many people living in South Cambridgeshire. So Councillor Henry Batchelor is going to present this, and I think Councillor Natalie Warrendry seconding it. Councillor Batchelor.
Yep, thank you, Leader. Very happy to bring this paper to Cabinet. So I think every time we ask residents of South Cambs what their priorities are or what services the District Council offer that they're happy to have, cost of living always comes back very positively. So I think it's fair to say that the cost of living support we have been offering has been one of the priorities of the administration. So what this paper is looking to do here is essentially continue some of the cost of living services that we offer, as well as introducing some new ones into the next phase, which we're quite helpfully calling phase 3, as it's the third phase. So yeah, you can see the detail within the paper here. We have the officer Anna Maria with us, who can answer any questions of detail, should there be any from Cabinet members. And those Cabinet members that were at the informal Cabinet meeting we had a few weeks ago where this paper was presented to us, I'm pleased to say nothing has changed since then. So if Cabinet members were content with the paper in that form, then nothing new has been added or removed. So yeah, that's the paper, and I'm very happy to present it to us. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Natalie, do you want to add anything at this stage?
I just want to say that, very simply, members' casework is showing very clearly that we do have an issue with people being challenged by the cost of living. It hasn't gone away. And so therefore, that's why I want to second this, because I think the focus on continuation of the good work we're already doing is important. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think we're very lucky that we are in a position to do this work, because there's many councils do not have the luxury of being able to step in and make a difference to people's lives in the way that we're doing here. Anna Maria, do you want to add anything? No? Okay. Again, very, very clearly set out. Any questions from anybody? No? So we absolutely welcome this. Do members agree with the recommendations?
Agreed.
Anyone disagree? Anyone abstaining? No? So members therefore approve the recommendations. Anna Marie, thank you very much indeed to you and the rest of the people in your team. And lastly, housing regulator and performance. So Councillor John Batchelor is going to present this and Councillor Brian Milnes is going to second it. Councillor Batchelor.
Yes, thank you, Leader. Members no doubt will recall that last year the then government established the new regulator for social landlords. What we have before us is our first report back. Each year we have to do a survey with 22 prescribed questions to establish satisfaction levels amongst our tenants. That has been done, and we have to also provide a self-assessment, which is here in these papers. The regulator operates somewhat on a sort of Ofsted type arrangement, assessing things at a distance every year, and every 3 or 4 years we will expect to have a physical inspection who come in and analyse what our situation is. So this is a statutory obligation, so we have little choice in the matter other than happily put forward the recommendations. So that's what I'm doing. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Councillor Milnes?
Yeah, happy to second it, and just note that it's quite an additional burden on the housing team, and we'll do our utmost to respond in an appropriate way.
Thank you. Who sets the suggested targets? Are they our own targets, or are they external targets?
Well, it's much more complicated. So we do a proper survey with an independent company each year, but this is an opinion survey. So you know, we take some of it with a pinch of salt, because with our own performance targets, of course, we are asking people who have actually experienced whatever it is, repairs or whatever, they're asked how we did. This survey simply asks all our tenants what you think about something. So this isn't about what your experience was, it's what your perception is. So pinch of salt perhaps there. Julie Fletcher is with us, and I'm sure she's much more expert than me on these matters.
Thank you. In which case, I'll defer to Julie to put a bit more explanation on. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, just to say, in terms of the targets that have set, we're not told by the regulator what those targets have to be, or that we indeed have to set targets, but we have made that decision, you know, to always strive to improve, that we want to set targets and to sort of monitor ourselves against to make sure that we are on that road to improvement. The targets have been based on mostly benchmarking information, so we do know what other housing organisations similar to ourselves have produced with the first year of the TSMs. So we have benchmarked against them. Some of them already had targets against, especially in terms of sort of some of the health and safety targets, the perception ones, which are the survey that goes out to tenants. We've sort of provided realistic targets. Maybe the targets aren't always top quartile, because we know it will be quite a journey to get to the top quartile of similar benchmarking. Obviously, that's where we want to be, but it takes time, I think, in terms of changing people's opinion. So we're on that. I really believe we're on that road now in terms of that improvement, and we've put lots in place this year to sort of demonstrate that we're working towards that, such as the communications charter for housing that we recently approved, how we communicate with tenants, which I think goes a long way in terms of some of the perception targets.
Thank you. And we seem to be quartile one on quite a lot, actually. So, I mean, it reads positively to me. Can I just ask about homes that don't meet the Decent Homes standard? Because I think there's a very small proportion, isn't there? Could you just give a bit more information about that, please?
Yes, so when we originally published data, we provided a figure of 5.6% of our stock that didn't meet the Decent Home standard. This was based on initial findings from our stock condition survey that we've recently undertaken. Since that time, we've been able to refine the data in terms of based on the ages of the properties and the data coming back in terms of improvements that have been made to properties. This has actually reduced down what we believe don't meet the Decent Home standard. So it currently sits at 183 properties. Obviously, we've got a programme of works in terms of trying to improve our properties. Some of them may be in a planned programme in terms of maybe sort of window replacement, etc. So some of them may take a bit longer in terms of meeting the Decent Home standard, but we have sort of a programme in place to try and meet that, and you know, hopefully we can meet that. But it's always a moving feast, because as you sort of improve one property, another property may just fall into not meeting the Decent Home standard. So I think it's always a bit of a moving feast as well.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Any questions from anybody else? No. So thank you very much. It's quite a bit of work, isn't it? This, okay. Does this get published by government or by the regulatory body?
Yes, so we've had to publish the information to the regulator. We also have to publish it onto our website. And also just to say that we've now got a performance and TSM panel, including tenant reps and councillor bachelor, in terms of monitoring that performance.
Okay, good. Thank you very much indeed. Councillor Batchelor, do you want to add anything? We're all fine. It's all good. That's lovely. Thank you very much indeed. So, in the absence of any more questions, do members agree with the recommendations?
Agree.
Anyone voting against? Anyone abstaining? No, thank you. Therefore, members agree the recommendations. And I think that brings us to the end in slightly record time. So the next meeting, I don't know when the next meeting is. The next meeting of Cabinet is on the 3rd of December. And thank you very much, all colleagues and members, for your time today. Thank you.